So let's talk about a quest to build something that, honestly, feels like it's straight out of science fiction. It all started with a video of this small metal disc that could do something, well, something that just didn't seem possible. You see, when a steel ball bearing was dropped on it, it just kept bouncing and bouncing. It was mesmerizing. I mean, you drop a ball bearing on regular steel, you get a dull thud, right? But this was something else entirely. It was so captivating that it just sparked this total obsession. And of course, the first thought is, okay, I've got to buy one of these. But here's the problem. You can't. After digging around for hours, it became super clear that this atomic trampoline isn't something you can just add to your Amazon cart. And that's when a new plan was born. If you can't buy it, well, you're just gonna have to make it. So what's the secret sauce here? What makes this stuff so special? Well, it all comes down to the atoms. See, in normal metals, the atoms are arranged in this really neat, orderly, crystalline structure. Think of it like neatly stacked bricks. But this stuff, which is called metallic glass, has an amorphous or totally random structure. It's a jumbled mess, a lot like real glass. And that jumbled up arrangement is what lets it absorb and release energy so efficiently. That's where the bounce comes from. Okay, so step one on this quest was to find the recipe, and there are tons of different metallic glasses out there. It wasn't good enough to make just any kind. It had to be the exact same one from the video to get that incredible bounce. And here it is. The material is called Vitrolloy-1. It's actually one of the very first commercially successful metallic glasses. And making it requires this super precise cocktail of 5 different metals, with zirconium being the main ingredient. But if you look a little closer at that recipe, you'll spot the first major villain of our story. One of those ingredients isn't just any other metal. It's extremely dangerous to work with. We are talking about beryllium, and this stuff is no joke. If you inhale even a tiny amount of its dust or fumes, it can cause berylliosis. It's this incurable chronic lung disease that scars your lungs, and yeah, it can be fatal. People compare it to asbestos, and get this, a single exposure can be enough to trigger it for life. So suddenly, this fun project became a game of survival, and that meant living by 2 unbreakable rules. Rule number 1, make as little beryllium dust as humanly possible. That meant no cutting, no grinding, no machining, all that normal metalworking stuff was out. And rule number 2, do not, under any circumstances, breathe any of it in. The only way forward was to cast the metal directly into its final shape. Now, casting metal into a perfect disc without creating dust and without it being exposed to oxygen, well, that requires a really specialized piece of gear. This is definitely not something you can just whip up in your garage. The first idea, a simple furnace, got thrown out almost immediately. The problem is these metals are super reactive with oxygen when they're molten. A way better and safer solution was a machine called an arc melter. It basically uses a mini lightning bolt to melt metals inside a sealed chamber that's been filled with an inert gas like argon. That keeps them completely protected from the air. Of course, a high-tech solution like that, it comes with a pretty high-tech price tag. Getting the arc melter was a massive commitment, $14,000. Suddenly, this little science project turned into a very, very serious investment. Okay, so the machine is finally here. The next phase of the quest could begin. But this time, it wasn't a battle against a deadly material. No, this was a long, frustrating battle against the ridiculously finicky process of casting the metal itself. On paper, the idea seemed pretty straightforward. You melt a test metal, like iron, on top of a copper mold, and then you use a vacuum to suck the molten metal down into the little disc-shaped cavity. Simple, right? But in reality, absolutely nothing happened. The metal just sat there like a stubborn blob, refusing to go in. And what came next was a true failure montage that just dragged on for weeks. I mean, attempt after attempt was a total disaster. Either the metal would get stuck, or it would make a huge mess, or in the absolute worst cases, it would just get sucked right through the bottom of the mold. Honestly, it was enough to make you want to just give up and walk away. But then, finally, a breakthrough. And you know what? It wasn't some big new piece of equipment that solved it. It was mastering a really precise, hard-won technique. The whole secret was this super finicky combination of using the exact right amount of metal, heating it for a very specific amount of time, and opening the vacuum valve at just the right speed. So, armed with this new technique, it was time for the main event. After months of prep and failure and frustration, all the pieces were finally in place to create the real bouncing disc. Or so it seemed. So, it was time to use the actual Vitrolloy one. And it worked! The new technique pulled that molten metal perfectly into the mold. What came out was this beautiful, shiny, almost perfect disc of metallic glass. A huge moment of success. And here is where the final twist comes in. After all of that work, the disc was placed on its steel base, the ball bearing was dropped, and it just made this dull, clinking sound. It was barely bouncy at all. In fact, it was even worse than some of the failed attempts. What on earth had gone wrong? The key to the whole mystery was actually hidden in that sound. That little clink meant the disc wasn't sitting perfectly flat on the base. It was pivoting just a tiny, tiny bit with every impact, and that tiny movement was soaking up all the energy. The solution was surprisingly simple. Just glue the disc down to create a perfectly stable, unified system. And with that one last piece of the puzzle in place, it finally, actually worked. The sound completely changed to that springy, resonant boing, and the ball bearing bounced with that same insane energy from the original video. The quest was complete. You know, this whole journey really makes you think about innovation in general, and it leaves you with this kind of big question, doesn't it? How many other incredible scientific breakthroughs are out there, just sitting locked behind a wall of relentless failure, waiting for someone with enough curiosity and enough stubbornness to finally break through?